Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's discussion on depression.
Now, I would also like to understand what causes depression. Again, a lot of questions are coming in the chat. Can bullying cause depression? Or
So I just happened to see one of the questions about somebody asking about can childhood bullying lead to
yeah,
depression? And
yeah.
so depression hasn't it's not a straightforward causes that we can attribute to, but the way we look at in clinical aspect is we look at the biopsychosocial model in which we look at biological or you know biological factors or biology, and then we look at psychological and social factors. And answering to bullying, in terms of psychological factors, we are our past. The way we had a childhood, our upbringing, our nurturing, our care. Decides not just our emotional health, but it decides our personality, it decides our aspirations, it decides our way to take up initiatives and so on. So if you have had unpleasant childhood in terms of upbringing, in terms of abandonment, in terms of separation, then you're more likely to have psychological problems. Equally, if you had problems at school in terms of bullying for whatever reason, and harassment, and being put down and let down, uh, then you tend to have more emotional problems and sensitivity later in life, which makes you more vulnerable to psychiatric and psychological problems. Uh, Likewise, other sorts of abuse, physical abuse and sexual abuse in formative years, earlier years, can make you more vulnerable. It doesn't guarantee that you'll develop psychiatric problems, but it makes you more vulnerable. In terms of biology, we know that if depression runs in the family, so if your first degree relative like parents and uncles and aunt, or secondary relative like uncles and aunts, if they've had depression, then it carries in the genes, and that's very well established. So if there's a family history, you're more likely to develop psychiatric disorder, not definitely. So it's not automatic. Hormonal changes, for example, we now know that your thyroid dysfunction or low thyroid hormones can lead to depressive presentation. Then we have neurotransmitter imbalance, for various reasons. The shortage of happy chemicals in your brain can lead to development of depressive symptoms and negative thoughts and so on. So we talked about biology, we talked about psychology, and we talked about social. Social factors include deprivation, you know, impoverishment, difficulties, social difficulties in earlier years or in life. And then other factors we look at in social aspect is loss of job, loss of employment, loss of livelihood, and uncertainty over the future. And that's what we're seeing a lot during the lockdown period. The social factors have become very, very prominent. Uh, and the psychological factors also have become very prominent. People have been separated, people have been isolated, people have been segregated, people have not been able to do what they want to do and be with whom they want to be. So these psychosocial factors have become very pertinent and obvious during the lockdown period. And biology makes you more vulnerable to developing depression. So it's a complex interplay of various factors. So it's not one or the other. But as you know, when we do the assessment, we are looking at all these factors. Because if there is biology and when there's neurotransmitter abnormalities and hormonal imbalance, then they are more likely to respond to medication faster, as you know. And where there are psychological factors more pertinent, for example, separation and abandonment issues and so on, then we need to look at therapy, talking, closing the gap between your expectations and your understanding, making people emotionally aware, bringing a closure of of why you were abandoned and so on, attending to those unattended issues make people feel better. So biology, psychosocial factors, so these are the multiple things we look at. So bullying and all the other factors come into play. If you look at the death of Sushant Singh Rajput, very, very sad demise, very early demise, and my heart goes with the family. There's a lot of talks in media that he was subjected to systematic harassment and bullying and isolation. So if such a thing is true, then it can have an enormous negative bearing on an individual. And I believe, I don't know, I could confirm it, that he was already on some treatment for depression, and because of isolation, he probably felt that this was not going anywhere and this might be the end of the road for him. So it's very, very sad. So, and the bullying just doesn't happen in childhood. It happens even when you're adult. It happens in your office. It happens later in life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just to add on to that, I think very beautifully you have explained about the biopsychosocial model and how it's not just the experiences which shape us or make us feel the way like predisposes us. It's like a precipitating factor for depression. But
Mm.
also there are a lot of biological imbalances, like you talked about chemical. I just saw a question, somebody asking that out of out of the blue, out of no reason, I sometimes feel like crying. So
Mm.
so can we relate that to the psychosocial model, or can we say that it might be due to the chemical imbalances in the brain, that even though there is no experience or nothing, no negative experience that you are going through, still you are
Mm.
having this kind of symptom?
Spontaneous crying might be related to, it doesn't have to be illness, you see. And who was asked the question, I think you need to be assured that I think spontaneous crying is because of uh, our unwillingness to process emotions. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're crying for something, then there must be something in the mind for which you're crying
Mm-hmm.
for. Either something that's happened, or something that's happening, or something that might happen. The fear of something happening. So,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the principal problems, as you know, what we see is that we don't want to process our emotions. We want
Mm-hmm.
to deny them, and as you know, this is simply not a good strategy. Suppression and denial of emotion just doesn't help. Uh, if there is a spontaneous crying, then you must cry. It's a sign of strength. It's a release. I use some of the things with my patient to say that when you have too many thoughts in your head, there are only two outlets to those thoughts. One is the eyes with tears, and the other one is the mouth. And you can choose. Both are fine. If you must cry, then you should. But if you can talk about it, the moment you talk, your problems will be halved, and you will be unburdened, and you'll get a deeper understanding of as to what is it that's making you emotive, what is it that making you tearful, why, what and why. Answer that question. If the person is not able to understand, journal it. Write, try to understand the pattern. When do I feel like crying? What happened before I cried, and what happens after? What happens during? Try to identify a pattern, and you'll see that you start to feel better because your emotions are processed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So letting out is the whole idea behind, yeah. So you
Vent and
mentioned.
unburden.
Mhm. Vent and unburden yourself. So either you take it out through your tears or take it out through your mouth. Either talk to somebody or write it down if you are not very comfortable. Because again, people have different kind of, some people prefer particular mode of venting out.
Mm.
Some people prefer the other. So some people might like writing it down. Some might like talking out it. So I think
Yeah.
it is a sign of strength to talk about it, like you said.
Yes.
When if you don't share it, it will just keep piling up in you, and suddenly one day it will just burst out. So I think it is very important that when we talk about treatment, also it is very important that we share or discuss any of our problems with our loved ones. And seeking help is not a sign of weakness, definitely. It is, in fact, a sign of strength that we are trying to seek help and work on ourselves.
I think so. I think so. We call it, as you know, we call it emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
People who have that, intelligence doesn't come from education. It comes from awareness, just like
Mm-hmm.
spirituality. Spirituality simply means awareness of your emotions and thoughts and feelings. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're aware of your thoughts, you're spiritual, and if you're aware of your thoughts and feelings, then you're emotionally intelligent. So intelligent are those who seek early help, and people
Mm-hmm.
have a huge worry. You see, people have a huge worry about help means going to a professional and going to a doctor. No, no, no. It can be anybody who listens.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I want to add is that the problem, well, family is there to help us all the time, but the problem with family and friends could be that they give you advice before they listen, and
Mm-hmm.
they will give you, premature advice, whereas
Mm-hmm.
a professional will listen and
Mm-hmm.
give you timely advice. A family can be subjective, and professional will be objective,
Mm-hmm.
and that is priceless. To have somebody who doesn't know you, who doesn't have bias, who's objective, has no personal gains in terms of taking sides and so on, and who listen more than they talk. If that can happen in any conversation, then you cracked it. You cracked it.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be no longer unattended emotions.
Yeah, so it's very important that we find that kind of social support system with whom we can, vent out or talk about our concerns and who is there to listen.